Welcome to PsychEd. This video is on Introduction to Psychology, and this is Series 1, Part 1 of the video. In this portion of Introduction to Psychology, we'll discuss about the definition of psychology, which is very important for us to know to understand psychology further. And then we'll look into various different historical perspectives of psychology like structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, gestalt psychology, psychoanalytic, humanistic, and cognitive. So, in part 1, we have the definition and these three approaches. Otherwise, if we include all the approaches here, the video would become really long. So, let's get started. So, psychology has actually been derived from Greek words psyche, which means soul, and logos, which means study. So, in the very beginning, psychology was considered to be the study of soul, but later it shifted its focus to the study of consciousness. However, this was also not quite feasible. So, now in the present time, psychology deals with the study of human behavior, experiences, and mental processes. Therefore, the definition of psychology is that psychology is the scientific study of behavior, mental processes, and experiences. There are four keywords here that we need to remember that psychology is a scientific study and it studies behavior, mental processes, and experiences. Now, let's get into the detail of each one of these keywords and break it down. Behavior. It refers to a response or a reaction we make to the activities or situations or anything that we engage in. Anything that we see is our outward behavior. We say that it's an overt activity. Overt means anything that is visible from outside or anything that is observable. We need to remember this important term here. So, for example, anything that is hurled at you, your response to it would be your behavior. Then, the second keyword mental processes. So, mental processes are related to the brain. You'll see cognitive word a lot of times. Wherever you see this word, it means mental processes or brain activities. And it is called covert or internal activity. If you remember the word overt, overt means external, observable things, and covert means internal, something that cannot be visible outside. So, all the cognitive processes are also studied in psychology. These are thinking, feeling, remembering, problem solving, intelligence. All of these are your brain activities. The third keyword here is experiences. The events of our daily life are the experiences, and experiences are subjective. They differ from one person to another. And these are also studied in psychology because our experiences affect our cognitive processes and also our behavior. So, these are the three things that we study in psychology, and we do that scientifically. Why do we say that? Because psychology is a science. Just like pure sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, psychology uses scientific methods, psychology also does that to answer questions. As we see here in this paragraph of the American Psychological Association or the APA, it says psychologists employ scientific method, stating the question, offering a theory, then constructing rigorous laboratory or field experiment to test the hypothesis. Therefore, psychologists also use evidence based research to solve problems and improve our lives, right? So, we can say that there is a question, aroused because of the researcher's curiosity. Then he begins with his research to answer this question by designing the study and accordingly collecting the data. Then he analyzes the data and finally interprets it. These are the results of the study. If the results are accepted by the larger community, then a theory is formed. If the result is not accepted, the researcher again start with his further study for the question. All the methods used in scientific study, like interview, case study, survey, questionnaire method, case study method, are scientific methods which we'll study further. So, that is why we say psychology is a science. These terms might be confusing in the beginning and complicated, but we'll study them further and then they'll become really easy for us. Moving, it's time for us to discuss the different historical perspectives of psychology. So, the first school of thought of psychology was structuralism. The first school of thought meant the proper framework that said what psychology should be actually. And this was the first school of thought called structuralism. And the propagator of structuralism was Wilhelm Wundt, a German psychologist. And it is important for us to know that he was also called the father of psychology because he was the one who started the very first psychological laboratory in Leipzig, Germany in 1879. Please remember this, it's something really important. It's asked in multiple choice questions and home examinations. It might be asked anywhere if you're a psychology student. One must know, where was the first psychological laboratory opened? In Leipzig, Germany in 1879 by Wilhelm Wundt. He said that psychology is the study of structure of mind, and he focused his study on experiences, sensations, thoughts, and feelings. He used the method of introspection, I'm so sorry, to study these things. Introspection or self observation or analyzing one's own thought. One of his followers, very famous followers, was Edward Bradford Titchener. He also used the same method of introspection. And he said that psychology is the study of consciousness. And he broke consciousness into three elements: physical sensation, feelings, and images. So, this structuralism, the first school of thought, laid the foundation stone for further study and research in the field of psychology. And any study would actually arouse criticisms as well. So, the criticism for structuralism school of thought was that it used the method of introspection, which was only successful on people who were capable of introspecting themselves or who were trained to introspect themselves. And also, they found that the method of introspection is highly unscientific. That's because it cannot be studied on animals or on children. And that is why this school of thought was rejected. But it led to further studies, and another school of thought emerged, which is functionalism. And before we go on to that, let's see the propagators: Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Bradford Titchener. Functionalism. Functionalism was given by William James. He was the father of American psychology. We said the father of psychology was Wilhelm Wundt, the father of American psychology was William James. And he said that psychology is the study of function of mind. And he adopted a biological approach because he was highly influenced by Charles Darwin and his theory of natural selection. He took the approach of adaptation or adjustment to the environment. He considered mind to be a continuously flowing entity a stream that carries organisms to adapt to its environment. According to him, the only function of the mind was to adjust to his environment. But this school of thought was also rejected and was highly criticized. And this aroused a new school of thought. Here is William James. The next school of thought was behaviorism, and this emerged after the criticism of structuralism and functionalism. And the propagator of behaviorism was John B. Watson or J. B. Watson. These names are very important for us to know as these were the pioneers who built psychology further. So, if you remember, then it would be really nice. According to behaviorism, the psychology should be the study of observable and measurable behavior because it would be highly unscientific to study anything that cannot be measured. They did not consider the underlying mental processes as the area of the study because it cannot be measured. Like they said, fear. How would fear be measured? Only the overt or the observable reaction to fear can be measured, like heartbeat or blood pressure. So they said that behavior of individual was controlled by the environment, and it depends on what the individual observes, imitates, and what he learns from the environment. According to them, what was measurable was the behavior that was observable, and this observable behavior occurred because humans imitate or learn from their environment or from their experiences. They said something of the SR relationship or the stimulus response relationship. So they said that an organism is like a black box, right? And anything the stimulus goes in, a response comes out, okay? Because of the previously learned content of the humans. So they said that an organism senses a particular stimulus and responds to it in a particular way depending on what he previously learned. This is what I was talking about, the black box into which the stimulus is sent and from which the responses are received. Some of the classical studies by behaviorists were the operant conditioning by Skinner, classical conditioning by Russian physicist Ivan Pavlov, and third, observational learning or the social learning theory by Albert Bandura. These were our behaviorists. So that is it for today's video, and we'll continue further with other historical perspectives in part 2 of the series. Till then, thank you very much for watching Psyched.